a new time and season, and you're meant to, you know, focus on that. So just give me a sec. And for me, I had a strong impression that I should start preaching at that time. That is was time for me to grow up and work. Enough pampering. So they had pampered me enough. So it was time to go and work. It was not easy, especially the first few tries. I remember the first time I preached on a shuttle bus. I made sure I sat down at the back seat. I was praying in tongues. I flipped through the Bible with the hope that the Holy Spirit will fill my lips with what to say. The bus took off and I was so tense. When we got to Unio roundabout, this Dakada roundabout here, I started preaching. Along the line, I ran out of words. You know when you say one sentence like 3 times? Jesus was saying, and Jesus said, when he said, oh Lord, I started preaching so. But all of a sudden, the Holy Spirit filled my mouth with words, and I completed that journey. I want to thank God for that specifically because that was my first trial, and the Holy Spirit helped me. I felt so fulfilled after that day. I started preaching in bus shuttles more often. It is good to have godly friends. This is another section now. It's good to have godly friends that can stir you up to good works. Sometime in 2024, I and some of my friends from different departments, as we were led, came together to pray at a building. So if you're in PEM site, I don't know whether you know this new engineering block. Yeah, so that's the building we usually prayed almost every day. We did this consistently. So we used to come together around 2 p.m. almost every day. If I'm not mistaken, like 4 times a week. We did this consistently for like a whole semester. In addition to that, we would periodically come on Saturdays to pray church prayers. Even if me and myself, I was not part of this particular prayer, but we would do that. At a particular period of time, we were led to go on evangelism, which we obeyed. During that time, God gave me the boldness to evangelize like I had never done before. We entered classrooms and preached to multitudes, and I would see the compelling power of God on raw display. People who were not listening before would suddenly start listening. So this particular one was a nice experience, though it was troubling at first to me. I would enter, our target place was Agric, so I would go to Agric, and there'll be my friends will be meeting people one-on-one, and the Holy Spirit will tell me, go and enter a classroom and preach. And my heart is going to be beating like this. But I'll just obey and I'll just go there, greet them, and start preaching. But first, before that, I usually ask them, do you people have a lecture now or something like that so that nobody interrupts me? And they said, no, I would start preaching, and boldness, before you know it, words would just be coming out of my mouth. And people that were not listening before, people that were pressing their phones, they'll just start listening to me. And it was really interesting. I recall a certain time we entered the Agric Lecture Theatre, the big Agric Lecture Theatre, and my friend Emmanuel, who normally was shy of preaching in crowds. So basically, he says he's called to intercession. My friend said, don't worry. I will pray for you. He says he's called to intercession, so he'll be doing the background work while we are there in the front. He was suddenly stirred. I've never seen that kind of boldness from him. For someone that he's almost terrified to preach, he was bold. I think it was righteous indignation because he was bold. And he climbed the podium. He hit the table 3 times. The hall became quiet. A large hall like this. And he started preaching. Wow. After that, he did an altar call, and about 13 people gave their lives to Christ that day, out of whom God is making strong disciples of some. I saw one of them in the church, Victory Chapel, and the person was serving and the person was teaching. Some others are just growing, and I'm so happy that we obeyed that, that prompting. On another occasion, I obeyed a burden to preach to someone, and it ended up with the lady was having suicidal thoughts. So one of those Fridays we would go for evangelism. We went to pray before we went. So as I passed the ground floor, the classroom, I had the impression that I should go and preach in the classroom. So I didn't really pay attention to it. So I went upstairs as I was praying. The impression was stronger. So I decided to obey it, and I went to the classroom and I started preaching to the students. After asking if they had a lecture, they said no. I started preaching to the students, and I was noticing a particular lady that her eyes looked teary. So After I was done, I had an impression to go and talk to her. So I went to talk to her, and it found out that she was going through some things. And so I just prayed for her. But while I was talking to her, she said something that, God, if you still love me, send someone, you know. And I got the impression, so I went after the class. I didn't know that she was the target person that I was meant to go for. And when I started preaching, she said, it's not enough. If you want me to not do this thing I'm about to do, let him come and talk to me. So it was at that point that I came to talk to her. And he ended up that I think she was planning to commit suicide, but by God's grace, he was stopped by obedience. Again, months later, I was in the hostel on a Friday afternoon, and I had the impression to go to that same building and evangelize.